Pattern making is most important. So what I like to do is I like to deal with the pattern making for each individual garment section so that you can generate all the pieces from that section and put that section away. So what you're looking at here, this is the body back, and I've drawn in two different colors. For the back neck facing, we come down 2 inches from the shoulder seam intersection here and 2.5 inches down at the center back. So we will trace out this here, and what that will generate in a moment, I'll show you, that will generate the back neck facing that will attach to the front. In green, you see here, this is what's called the back stay. So this one traces off and it produces this piece here. Now this particular piece is one that is cut with no seam allowance, which brings me to the thing I should have said earlier. I draft with no seam allowances, then after I generate all the pieces, I add the seam allowances later. So I've generated this to here. What you see here is I have traced off this piece, and that comes to here. This is the back neck facing. So this is cut with the center back on the fold. I also shave off 1/8 of an inch at the shoulder seam, because then this is going to be on the inside of a curve. So this is going to reduce a little bit bulk there. So then also I have traced out from here to here, over to here, and all the way down and all the way back up. And that is going to generate the lining back. Now the lining back, you can see these two seams fold or sew together. At the shoulder, we drop the shoulder down 1/4 of an inch because you want to create room for your shoulder pad. And then since this is the lining, I like to add 1 to 1.5 inch pleat at the center back, and this tapers down roughly to the waist, which is 12 to 14 inches from this point here. Now, on both the body and the lining, and come down to the hem, on the body, this line here is the finished edge, so I'm going to add 1.5 inch hem allowance on. On the lining, you can see this is the original because you trace the original out. We raise this up 3/4 of an inch, and then we add the 1.5 inch hem allowance here. It's always an 1.5 inch hem allowance on a jacket. So you want the lining raised up 3/4 of an inch because you don't want it hanging down below the finished edge of the jacket. This is going to give you a jump pleat in construction. So here we have the back pieces. This one here is the main body piece. We generated the back stay from there. We generated the back neck facing, and we generated the back lining. So these are the pieces generated from the body back. Next, here is the body side panel. I like to make the arrow to indicate that faces towards the front. You want to make sure you have your pocket placement marked there. And also you see at the lower edge here, we're adding that 1.5 inch hem allowance. So what we'll do is we'll trace a copy of this. Again, just stitching lines. We'll add the seam allowances later. So that generates the body side lining. And really, the only alteration you have to do to this one is we raise up the fold line 3/4 of an inch. We add 1.5 inches down. Now some people say, why don't you just trim off 3/4 of an inch here? You could do that too, works the same. But I like to show you what I'm doing with the finished edge and then the hem allowance. So marked the front, we've marked the grain line, all the matching notches. So the body side and the body side lining are now finished. Here we have the body upper sleeve, the body under sleeve. As you can see, I have the grain lines marked. I also have the 1.5" here. Just add that in so you can see what I've done. So the 1.5" hem allowance applies to both the front and the back. So we trace a copy off of these. And so on the lining upper sleeve and the lining under sleeve, the alteration we do at the cap here, you can see we've dropped down 1/2 inch and we've redrafted the cap. And if you look at this, this looks like the cross section of the shoulder pad. At the hem, again, come up 3/4, down 1.5 inches for both. And so now we have the linings and the sleeves. I like to draft the notch lapel and the shawl lapel from scratch. Now what I have found is that if you know how to draft a shawl lapel, you draft a notch lapel and you're all good. So, some definitions here. This intersection here is what's called the high shoulder point. This is where the neckline curve would intersect the shoulder. And so what I have done here is I have drafted, I'll just color it in a little bit more. I've drafted what's called the V-neck down from there to intersect with the center front of the jacket. Now next, I'm going to just bring this here. What we want to do is extend a line up. Now, the length of this line, I'm going to refer back to the back neck. And I've measured, and the measurement that I came from the center back to the shoulder point here is 3 3/4 inches. So, knowing that, I'm going to extend 3 3/4 inches. And then perpendicular back towards the armhole side by 3/8 of an inch. So then from here, I'll just do this in a color so you can see it. You're going to make a curve from this point here. Okay, next, now this is something you really want to focus in on, so I'm going to zoom in. So again, to recap, from here to here is the back neck measurement, 3 3/4 inches. From here to here is 3/8 of an inch. Now, this is going to be the center back of the collar. Now, the mistake that people make is making a 90-degree off of the original line. Don't do that, please. Don't do that. What you want to do then is come to here and see there's a 90-degree here. So there is your line. This line cancels. This is the center back. So now there is what's called the stand plus the fall plus the cover. The stand is generally 1 1/4 to 1.5 inches. I'm going with 1 1/4 inches. The fall equals the stand. They're both the same. 3/4 of an inch ensures that the edge of the collar will cover the neck seam. So 1 1/4 inches, 2.5 and 3/4 is 3 1/4 inches. So this, the edge of the collar is going to be 3¼ inches, and you're going to mark that parallel to the neck seam. That's what this is. This is the neck seam. So that is the neck seam. So that's getting us in the game. Next, as you can see, I've drawn the shape of the collar that I prefer. I measure down here 1/2 inch, and that is going to be where the collar wants to fall when the garment is being worn. So to make that occur where you want it, one thing you need to do is you need to find out the midpoint between this edge here and this edge here. And so it looks like midway is 2 inches. And if you just extended the shoulder line back, you have an intersection there. This is going to be the top of the roll line, because a roll line is different than a V-neck. The roll line is the stand of the collar. So now let me just draw back out and show you where that connects. Here is the end of the roll line, so we're going to connect it down to here. This is where the roll line on the collar will be. This then cancels. And then, because we want to transfer all of this out to here to get the shaping, when we fold fabric, we lose 1/4 inch. It's called turn of cloth. So what I like to do, because if you don't correct for turn of cloth, this is going to look too narrow when you make up the garment. So I like to make a little faint guideline, 1/4 inch away. So this dotted line is going to be where I fold the paper to trace this out to here. Now I'm going to fold this back along that dotted line. And trace out these lines like so. So we're tracing it through, and the lines will trace to the other side. Now, if it doesn't necessarily marry up perfectly down at the around here, you're going to be fine. So let me just go over the lines. So this, there's that. Let that blend, and this then is going to blend with the overlap. So now this shape here, what you can do is kind of blend, you kind of split the difference. So there we have that, and erase what you don't need. Also erase that because it's confusing. And so from here, this joins up to there. And if it misses a little bit, that's not going to kill you. So I think what I'll do here is go off camera and outline this in a color and show you the result. So as you can see here, this is going to be the under collar, and this is going to be the outer edge of the lapel. I'm going to bow that in just a bit. And this whole shape here, this is what I say, to taste. If you like it, you can make your muslin and check it out and make sure that it reads. Then it'll be all good. So this here, let me adjust the camera and zoom out, and then I'll talk about the next step. So here we have the body front, we have the under collar, we have the lapel. Now we need to get the upper collar, we need to get the lapel facing, and we need to get the lining. So to begin, we're going to measure the lining. We want to measure out 2 inches from this intersection point here. That's 2 inches. And so then this line, I'm going to draw it down, and this is going to be the seam between the lining and the facing. Now this is roughly 4 to 6 inches, and when it right about the chest, I like to bring it down to straight, parallel with the grain line here. Okay, so here, as I said, measure 2 inches this way, and then this draws all the way down to the hem. And from here, I will trace out this section here. This is the front lining, and then I'm going to trace out all of this here as the front facing. So I will go off camera and trace out those pieces, and I will bring them back so you can see them. So here we have the two side by side. As you can see, I have traced off all of this. I've traced off the roll line, so here to here, up, and so forth. So this is the facing. This is going to be the beginnings of the upper collar. We have the roll line, and we've traced all the way down. So I'm just going to slide this so you can get a sense of the whole thing. As we come down to the hem, this point here, just bring this up a little more so you can see it. This here is this intersection here. Now that I know where this is here, I can add the hem allowance to the body. So the hem allowance is 1.5 inches. And then you want it to end roughly 1 inch inside this line here. That makes this fall behind the facing when you're sewing. So this is step 1. We have all the information from here onto fresh paper. So our next step is to add the turn of cloth. Next we're adding the turn of cloth. And so this is something I figured out relatively recently. When you are folding the lapel facing, you need a little extra fabric here to get up and over the fabrics underneath it. So I figured out this little move that works quite well. So I'm going to draw kind of a dotted line, a guideline over to the center back here, because we're going to cut all of this. And I'm going to bring a cut down here. Now, I'm just going to cut up here and then over. And then this line here is right at the end of the roll line, and it's perpendicular to the roll line. So the object here, I'm going to tape it to the paper. so you can see it better. I'll patch in some paper in a moment. So you're going to spread this, oopsie, you're going to spread this 1/4 of an inch parallel along the roll line. I'll just put that there for now. And then we'll patch in some paper. So you're adding the fabric in the pattern where you need it in the garment. So what that will look like, I will go off camera, patch this in, and bring you back the results. We have the extra paper added in, and then here, down here, it's a simple matter of smoothing out that line. And you just split the difference here. One erases out here, this one erases here. So here we are. So this is the main draft. What I want to do is trace the upper collar on separate paper, and then I will have this as my facing, and our next step is to do the favoring. As you can see, I've traced this off, which creates my upper collar for the back. Now, one thing I'll do before I put this away, I can erase this because it has done its job. So I'll use this for the facing, but I'll set that aside for now. Now this here, there's our shoulder seam. We next want to do the favoring at the edges. Favoring at the edges. Since we added the turn of cloth here, the 1/4 of an inch, favoring is generally 1/8 of an inch around this edge and this edge here. So you just want to add it. Debates rage over whether you make the upper collar larger or the under collar smaller. I like making the upper collar larger. So we've added 1/8 here, we've added 1/8 here, we taper to 0 here, and then I like to bring it out at the center, 1/4 of an inch, because you want a little extra room around here to get around the back of your neck. So then this here, there is your new center back fold to there. So this is the upper collar. And so next I'm going to generate the under collar. For the under collar, this is the area that we're going to copy off on fresh paper. So it's just a direct 1-to-1 copy. We don't have to do any favoring, we don't have to do any slashing and spreading. The only thing we want to note, shoulder seam, like I did on the upper collar. And that's part of the roll line here. So it doesn't hurt to just have that in there. So putting this aside, this is the under collar. That right there is a shoulder. This is the center back seam. And the grain line is 45 degrees to the center back seam. So the under collar is cut on the bias so that it shapes better in construction. So there we have the under collar. So here we have the under collar and the upper collar. So these two are finished. Now our next step on the body really we just erase this. So what I can safely do now is trim away that and add seam allowances, and the body front will be finished. On the lapel facing, we're going to lower by 1/8 of an inch at the shoulder. And at this point here, we're going to add 1/8 of an inch here, and also add 1/8 of an inch down to the break point. Taper to nothing at the break point, and then subtract 1/8 of an inch below the break point all the way down to the curve here. But then want to add 1/4 of an inch here and redraft this to that 1/4 of an inch point. So we now have our facing ready for seam allowances. So here we have the back pieces. This one here is the main body piece. We generated the back stay from there. We generated the back neck facing, and we generated the back lining. So these are the pieces generated from the body back. These two are the body side pieces. This is the main body. This is the body side lining. And here we have the body upper sleeve and the upper sleeve lining. Moving forward, we have the body undersleeve and the body undersleeve lining. So here we have the pieces generated from the front. There's the main body piece. Here is the lapel facing. Here is the front lining. We have the upper collar and the under collar. So as you can see here, we have our whole pile of pattern pieces. Now I will go add seam allowances, and then we will be ready for cutting and marking.